Thanks so much, Mr. Sheehan. We'll now begin our 5-minute rounds of questions. I'll go first, followed by Ranking Member Heinrich. We'll then alternate between Republicans and Democrats, each 5-minute rounds in order of seniority subject to the early bird rule. Mr. Brown, Attorney General Brown, I'd like to start with you. I've got a chart here that shows two maps of BLM-managed land within Utah. The map on the left shows all the BLM land in Utah that was open for multiple use in 1976 upon the enactment of FLPMA. And then the map on the right shows those same lands today, now plastered with a lot of restrictive designations pursuant to FLPMA. Now, comparing these two maps, what is the increase in restrictive designations over the last 49 years since FLPMA's enactment? What does that mean for the rural economies in the state of Utah? Rural economies that, especially those that depend on access to these lands, and how does it affect the ability to permit projects like transmission lines, wildfire mitigation, grazing, basic rights-of-way, and so forth?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, first of all, if you look at that map, the purple also represents what are effectively single uses. And the reality is under FLPMA, the dual mandate, obviously, is multiple use and sustained yield. And so to live in, you mentioned these rural communities. One of them, I spend a lot of time in Garfield County, for instance. I have a father-in-law that lives there. We love it. I love the mountain biking there. It is roughly 93% owned and controlled by the federal government. So you literally can't take any action without implicating the federal government. And by the way, you mentioned the economic impact. Imagine trying to run and fund a county on what's effectively 3 to 4% of the land being able to tax. And so things like hospitals or schools. I mean, so when I talk to, and I know, Mr. Chairman, when we talk to commissioners, for instance, in Garfield County, they're very passionate about this issue. And so I think ultimately one of the things that we need to do is have what's mentioned, I think by every testimony here today, is meaningful involvement of the people who are local and who are most directly affected by these designations. And I think that will make a huge impact in how it is that we address these issues.
Right, and that makes things very difficult. You mentioned that 93% ownership, the fact that that's all owned by the federal government makes a lot of things more difficult, including building up their own tax base. Now, can we talk for a moment about the Trans-West transmission line? You spoke about that and the fact that it took more than 18 years to move from application to construction of the project. That's a long time. It took that long in large part because the project had to navigate multiple outdated or ever-shifting federal planning documents. And it's spanned the creation and revision of two separate sage-grouse plans, each with different requirements. So the ground was shifting throughout the duration of that because of these multiple governing documents. What does that experience tell us about how rigid and sometimes outdated RMPs affect transmission permitting, and what would need to change in the planning process in order to ensure that projects like that aren't stuck perpetually in limbo?
Well, FLPMA was passed over 50 years ago, and I think those who voted for it at the time wouldn't recognize what it looks like at this point in time. And I think one of the things we need to do is rethink the rigidity of the process, because it's not good for anyone, and it's not good for permitting projects. I mean, you mentioned this this express. I mean, this transmission line was a renewable project that was a priority for multiple administrations. So everyone wanted it to happen. And so you can imagine if you have a project that everyone wants to happen and it still takes 18 years, I mean, clearly the process itself is broken. Now, admittedly, this was a very complicated project spanning multiple states, starting in Wyoming, delivering power to California. But that being said, we've got to be able to rethink the process if it takes that long.
Indeed, and that's for, as you say, a relatively non-controversial project. Mr. Sheehan, you noted that BLM now uses more than 26 different administrative designations. that can be layered, often one on top of the other, compounding the complexity of it. What happens on the ground when these designations are layered over the exact same landscape? And how does that affect BLM's ability to carry out habitat work, fuels treatments, or even maintain existing infrastructure on those lands?
Oops, I'm sorry. Thank you, Chairman Lee. Certainly, when we have sort of this multitude of layers, some of those were identified on that map you showed a moment ago. It can restrict even our ability to help, in many cases, wildlife and those needs. Wildlife do need our help. We have changing and evolving landscapes. We have fire regimes. We have drought situations that occur, and it's really important that we can get in for the benefit of wildlife and do water structures and developments and projects, do habitat restoration to help reduce the impact of non-native invasive plants that come into our landscapes. We do need to get into these areas to address fire rehabilitation after they occur. And, you know, at times, some of these designations will preclude us from being able to get in and adequately help wildlife and their needs.
Thank you.